You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I'm joined by my two friends, Amanda and Tyler. We are a trio of coaches on a mission to ignite a collective movement where authenticity, self-discovery, and purposeful living take center stage. Each episode, we go live in the Kaya way. Kaya is an open invitation to show up authentically and vulnerably. It's a safe space to allow ourselves to be worthy and enough now. It's a celebration of our individuality and diversity. So welcome to the show. We are happy that you're here, and we invite you to join us in today's conversation. Hello.
Hello.
Here we are.
I was like, the intro was playing and I was totally kind of like dazing out, like kind of going into my thoughts, and then we popped up and I was like, oh, we're on. Let's go.
That's not the first time, Tyler.
I know. Welcome to Tyler's world.
It's just the intro is always the same, so we're like, whatever.
Yep. I literally complete dazed face. I was like, what do I got to do today? And then I was like, oh, yeah, hi.
We're here for a conversation.
Yes, we are.
Well, good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good night.
Sure, yeah.
So what's the Kaya vibe for you two today?
Good question. I would say that honestly, I woke up a little bit grouchy today. I woke up like in a stinky mood, but I think it's just knowing like that today's going to be a really long day for me, because at my part-time job, we have to do inventory. So we have to literally stay like all night long and count all of the inventory in our store. So I'm just mentally like in that headspace of like, today is going to be long and grueling, and that made me grouchy. So that's how I'm checking in today.
I'm like already having thoughts about this, but I'm like, okay, I will wait. Because I think that's really interesting. And I think for me, I don't know. I feel like I'm just showing up today. Showing up, and I mean, it's the start of another week, and today is definitely going to be a busy day. So though I can relate to what you're saying, Tyler, and like this, like, okay, but I'm trying to like, be in this mindset of just being present in all of those moments. So I'm arriving. How about you, Stephanie?
Well, I feel very much on like emotional fire. You know that feeling when you're like just really on and tuned in. So I'm super hyper focused, present every moment right now. I'm right now working on a course, and I've done that pretty much all morning, and I'm just so jazzed about what I'm creating. It's just so good. Like, I actually can't wait to finish the course so I can do it also myself. So it's super cool. When you just really know for yourself that you really are producing something amazing or creating something amazing. And I'm in that space. And of course, this is all lessons that I have learned over the years, but somehow it's also cool to do it myself, to go through the process myself. So yeah, I'm sitting there first row seats to my own phenomenal creation, which is really, really cool. I'm just so high on, one of my mentors says this in a way, like, I'm so high on my own supply. That's what I feel. It's a really cool feeling. Yeah.
No surprise, Stephanie, but we're on similar pages. Surprise, surprise, right?
I saw it all over your face, Tyler. I was like, here we go. There's another one.
You can.
But more.
I 100% know like the feeling, Stephanie, of like being so into what you're doing right now, because I'm in that same space. And it's actually interesting as you're talking about like the creation part. Like, I'm sitting here going, yeah, the creation, it's so fun. Like, and I love everything that I'm creating. And you can halfway kind of see the little corner. I have my whiteboard in the back and I keep going to the back and I'm like madly drawing on it. And I'm like, and I have like papers everywhere and I'm like, ooh, this idea. And it's so like the creation is so intense and so like, and I don't know about you, Stephanie, but does it feel like this is like the course that you were born to produce? Because that's how I feel when I'm putting together my content for the academy that I'm building out.
No.
It's like I sit down and I look at the material and I look at, you know, how I've structured them and in what order and the topics that I'm covering, and I'm just like, oh my God, nobody else can create what I am creating.
That's the best feeling. That's so cool. And can I just like go back to what you're saying with your whiteboard? So I have a whiteboard just like that, but it hangs on the wall. And those are like the coolest days of my life when I'm like on the seriously, like on the whiteboard, and I have like, I don't know, 45 different colors, and I can just do my things there and brain dump or gather my ideas or map out like a YouTube video or whatever. It's so fun. And I'm dreaming of like having a whole wall that is just a whiteboard. I really love that so much. I don't know if it needs to be the whole wall, but now I think mine is the same size as yours. I think you started with this, like the background you have right now. I think you started like last week to have this, right?
Yeah.
And I already wanted to tell you last week, like, oh my God, I love your whiteboard in the background, because like that's how you can tell we are from the same flock, you know. It's like, oh, do you have a whiteboard that I feel like those are the kind of people that flock together. And so I wanted to say this, so now I'm going to say it, Tyler, I love your whiteboard background. It's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, so coming back to your question, sorry, I just needed to express my love and gratitude for whiteboards. It's so fabulous. I can recommend it for anyone who does anything creative.
What are we grateful for this morning? Whiteboards.
Yeah, let's toast whiteboards. That's a good idea. Let's toast.
Cheers to whiteboards. Cheers.
No, but coming back to your question, yes, absolutely. That is 100%. The course I'm doing right now is 100% just everything that I've gone through, just put together in a way that other people can also benefit from the lessons that I have learned. And it's just what's written on my heart, on my soul. Like, I need to get this out. Like, this is the medicine I want to put out into the world for other people also to heal. So I could geek out on this for like forever.
Yeah.
It's that like creative energy, truly, I think, you know what I mean? And I think it's really fascinating to see how every person expresses that in different ways, right? I think in maybe the past, or I know we're talking about this before, of like, oh, creativity means you're an artist, or that, you know, like you're in that space. And I just think creativity encompasses so much more than just that. Like, creativity shows up in, let's see, almost everything that we do. We just may not recognize that, you know? Like, creativity is in having a whiteboard, right? Like, creativity is even in like scheduling your calendar. Like, just, I don't know, there's just so many things that creativity encompasses, and I love that we're highlighting that today.
I think we get like, or at least I did, and I shared this earlier, but like for so many years, I never thought I was a creative person, because I only identified creativity to those people who were like able to draw or paint. Like, it was like art class. And a part of that is, I'm going to say it, I think it's our education system, like very specifically telling us this is what creativity is. It's artists, you know, and not fully helping us truly understand like what is creativity. But for so many years, I went through life thinking, oh, I'm just not a creative person because I can't paint or draw, which, I mean, we all can paint and draw, just some of us are better at it than others. I can do that stuff. It's just not a masterpiece. Like I have a couple of friends who will literally like doodle something on a notebook, and I'm like, that looks like, you know, like you just drew a still life or something like that in like 10 minutes. Like it's amazing. Like though that level of creativity is insane. But then as I got older and I started to understand that creativity is so much larger than just painting and drawing and like what we typically associate creativity to. And as Amanda was saying, like it takes a creative brain to schedule. It takes a creative brain to write. It takes a creative brain to build out a program. It takes a creative brain to cook. It takes a creative brain to do, you know, all of these different things, put together a cohesive outfit for the day. Like that's creativity. And, you know, and when you start to allow yourself to kind of understand what makes you creative, and then you get to like tap into that pool of creativity, it's very powerful. And you start to, again, just really understand like, oh, this is my creativity. And I'm curious, like, to know from the two of you, how do you the two of you express creativity?
Oof. Ooh. That's such a loaded question. How do I even answer that? How do I express creativity? You know, if we were in a coaching session, Tyler, I would ask you, can you give me a different question? Because I'm like, how am I going to answer that? It's very broad. It's like in everything I do. I think it goes back to what Amanda was saying, that it can be as simple as like I sit down and I work on a coaching course, but it can also be when I listen to music and I sing along. It's pretty much anything where I tap into, I don't know, I don't want to define it or anything, because creativity is too beautiful to just be put into one or two sentences. But the sentence I want to throw in here is when I tap into joy. Like when I do something that brings me joy or creates joy for me and other people, that is that's a big part of it. You can't be creative when you're in a funk. Like you need to be in this state of flow, or in this state of, I want to say joy. Then you can tap into creativity.
Interesting.
That's not even true, because there's so many people who create creativity out of pain. So see, there's no definition. Amanda, give it a try.
I was getting curious. I'm like, I don't know how to really, because like you were saying, like, I think for me, it's literally in everything that I do. That's, to me, creativity. Like, we are creative beings. Like, that is just maybe co-creating, but like, it's creativity at like the core, right? And so I was like getting curious. I'm like, dictionary definition.
Okay, give it to us.
It actually like is just something that uses imagination. So the use of imagination or original ideas. So even just the definition is quite vague. Because isn't everything that we do an original idea? Because it's our own. It's not anybody else's. And even if we borrowed an idea for someone else, it becomes our own once we use it, because it's us. Like, does that make sense? Right? Like, yeah, for me, creativity is literally in everything. And even in the funk, right? Because then it's the turning the pain to power, or it's the, finding the creative solutions on how to navigate the funk, right? Like, how do I find a way to go through those emotions. That to me is also creative. So I'm curious, since Tyler, you asked the question.
Yeah, I'm also dying to know what's your answer. How do
We're throwing it back on you. You can't just put it all on us.
So I don't have to answer. Like, you know.
I totally get that.
I'm
Sometimes
the-
you ask
you know,
questions and don't expect to like have an
I'm
answer.
the
yourself.
journalist today. I don't have to answer the questions. I get to ask them. No.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I don't know. Like to me, creativity is newness. I think it comes down to, as Amanda was saying, like, let's say you're in a funk. Well, how do you get yourself out of that funk? You have to come up with an idea. You have to like bring something new to the table, you know? And even if it's already been something that somebody else has done or said or created, the way you assimilate information and the way you like attach to that topic or that subject or that idea and the way you then go express it yourself, that's still a new creation, because only you can say the words in the way that you're going to say them, or in the exercise. Like only you can do the exercise the way you're going to do that exercise, you know? And I've started to like think about this because all three of us were coaches, and you know, we all have to, there's so much creativity and creation happening in coaching. Like when we are coming up with methodologies, when we are coming up with like our signature programs and our frameworks and our coaching exercises and all of these kind of things, like so much of it has already been mapped out for us. But then it's like, how do we add our creative flair to the simple systems and the processes and, you know, all of these kind of things? Like where do we put our own creative voice in it? And that's why, you know, when I was well, I guess I'm still business coaching. I still am. When I'm coaching clients through this kind of stuff, because this comes up a lot, you know, whether my clients are struggling to post on social media or come up with an idea for, you know, a program or something like that. Like people think they're not creative because they don't think they have anything new to share or new to say. And I'm like, take an idea and then ask yourself, how would I frame this? How would I say this? And it was so interesting because I have a client right now, and I'm going to shout her out just because she's so cool. Daisy, she is doing, she's right now currently going through cancer. She has cancer, and she is choosing to fight cancer naturally. And so she's exploring all of these like alternative medicines right now, and it's really cool. And so she's launched an Instagram doing this, and she's just sharing her journey of cancer on Instagram. But she's created a larger movement that she's had for many, many years called Warrior Stripes. And I love this idea of Warrior Stripes. And it's like, and she has like this tagline that says warrior on. So it's this whole like rally cry to put on your warrior stripes and go up and face the day and be tenacious and, you know, all of these kind of things. And we were talking the other day, and I was like, you know, Daisy, I love your warrior stripes mission, and I love the movement that you do with it, like with painting on the warrior stripes. And I brought it back to like what I'm doing and the way I vocalize this. And I say, do the unsexy work. You know, she says warrior on, you know, be a fighter, be strong, be tenacious. And I say, do the unsexy things, you know. But at the end of the day, both of our missions and both of the things that we're trying to help people do in life is the hard stuff that's going to move their lives forward, that's going to better them. But like, we are two different brains. It's the same idea. But two different brains that have completely like framed them in totally different ways. with completely different systems and methodologies and frameworks and all of these kind of things that support their unique idea. And this is the power of creativity, is when you can take something that's universal and then filter it in a way that only you can say it, only you can share it, only you can talk about it. And, I just think about this all the time. And, somebody who's really good at this, I think, is Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins does like she has her 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And then she has her latest one is the let them theory.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we, have we said, let them? Well, not really, not consciously, but she took this idea and she was like, okay, what if I made a whole method out of just this idea of let them, and what does that mean? And I mean, it's so simple, but it's like a creative genius, because now one of my coworkers is reading this book and she does not do personal development stuff, and she's like, this is like the good book, this is better than the Bible. She's like, just let them, it's so simple. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's such a creative genius, and I think, I don't know why I went off on this Tyler's tangent here, but I just think we are like the possibility for creative expression is there. It's just having the belief in yourself that what you do and how you do it and who you do it for, and the way you frame all of that you're creative enough to come up with that and to just be with that, I mean, Stephanie has worked so hard to get her to this place of being able to now be in this creation space of putting together this course. And it's like, this is hers. And I feel that power from her. And that is creativity at its finest. It's actually personal empowerment too, at the same time.
If you look at music, it's this, when you listen to songs, it's usually about love, right? So much is about love, or the absence of it, and or where love went wrong. And if you look at it, so many of the messages are very similar or even the same. But then there's artists that you click with, and then there's other artists you don't click with, right? We all have our music tastes, and some of us like it quiet, and others like it really loud, and some of us like rapping, and some of us stoned. And so it's not so much about it is about the message, yes, but then also how it's being delivered. I think that's so important that we realize, even though we may not create something that is super new, because again, for example, the Let Them book, it's not a super new concept, right? I mean, have you seen Frozen? When I first heard about Let Them, I was like, yeah, just listen to the song from Frozen. It's the same message. And that's not to undermine Mel Robbins. I mean, gosh, I love that woman so much. It's just to say that the way she puts it now with the book and with the systems and with the structure and with her super duper authentic, vulnerable personality that is so darn magnetic, in my opinion. It's a different pipe. It's a different way to express this message. And that is going to land with a lot of people, while maybe, some people listen to the Frozen song. I'm just going to go with this because it's fun. Listen to the Frozen song and think oh my gosh, yeah, I'm just going to let it go and let it be done with. And others don't. They don't even know that the movie exists, or they don't, although if you don't know that the movie exists, I don't know. I don't know. Have you been living under a rock? I don't know. But, or in the jungle, it could be. But they might not resonate with that, right? But then they go to Mel Robbins and they hear the Let Them, and it's oh yeah, of course, right? So I think it's so important as an artist to understand that sometimes, even if your message is not super duper new, the way that, I think that's what we have been saying here, that the way that we express it is unique. And for some people, it's so key to hear it through our vessel, through us. And that's the really cool thing, I think, about being a human, being someone that is creative, being an artist, that we get to express it in our own way, and then it's going to resonate with some people. And that's so cool, you know, when you really see like, wow, yeah, that made a difference for someone. That's, I don't know, as a coach, the coolest feeling in the world, I think.
I think this is really, to me, taking away this piece of creativity is, to like sum it up, an expression of ourselves.
Mhm.
And that can look like as many colors of the rainbow as there is, you know, like it can look like so many different things. And something you had said before, Tyler, that was really standing out for me, of this, like, you know, almost like we lose the creativity. So in one of my programs, I have a whole like part of like where we're teaching about creativity and what creativity means and really inspiring that creativity. And so what we also talk about is that there was a study done on school-aged children. And so they went to a kindergarten, like, you know, 3-4-year-olds classrooms, and they said, who's creative? And all the kids were raising their hands, I'm creative, I'm creative. And then they went to a 3rd grade classroom, and half of the kids raised their hand. Then they went to a 5th grade classroom, and maybe a third. And then they went to 8th grade, and there was maybe only a handful of kids. And so kind of starts making you think, well, how does that happen? Where does that come from? And I know we've talked about similar examples in the past, but to me, I think this is when well-intended people, or maybe not so well-intended, I like to think most people have the best of intentions. And so they may make comments, right? Like, let's say, you know, you're in 1st grade and you've created what you think is this like masterpiece, right? And you're showing it, and then someone says, well, that's ugly, or that looks stupid, or that's not good, or I don't like that. And then we like start building on that, and we take those things that other people say, and that becomes like our internal chatter and leads us in this direction of, well, you're not, maybe you don't put it in these exact words, but this is what it becomes, that we're not creative, that whatever we create is not good enough. And it breaks my heart to know that we go through that journey so unconsciously. Because if we're more conscious of it, I think, oh, okay, going back to bringing it in the let them theory, right? It's like, okay, well, you know, that's okay. Like, it's just your opinion, and you're entitled to that. But I still am proud of what the work that I do in the world, or how I express myself, right? Because this could even go to like the outfit choice, right? Because kids, I feel like, have the most amazing inspiration when it comes to outfit choices. Like, you see kids wearing the most unusual like outfits, right? And this makes my heart so happy, because this is their expression. And then they get someone who says, oh, your outfit's ugly, or oh, that pink tutu, you know, is stupid, or it's for babies, or I don't know, whatever it is that we hear, right? And I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but just that, like, where does that come from, right? Where does that creativity get squashed? Like, how do we forget how creative we truly are, and we lose that expression of that? We kind of start to retract, and we're, oh, maybe somebody will judge me, maybe somebody's going to say something about, you know, what I do or what I say. And this is like obviously a big conversation, but I don't know, that's what's coming up for me here.
You know, as you were sharing this, I had a really bad flashback of my own childhood in going to school.
Oh no.
And having art class. And I remember that I think I was pretty happy always doing my own thing there, but there were two things. So first was it was way too fast. And now knowing that I'm a highly sensitive person, that makes so much sense. Like I need my own speed, and it just needs to, I need space for things, and especially for creative stuff. And if I don't have that, if there's like time restrictions or whatever, it does not go well. And so that was the one of the things. And then the other thing was always the comparison afterwards. And I think that was not necessarily from the teacher or the other kids, but that was already in my own head by the time I wasn't like started school, that I would look at the other kids' projects and I would already in my head, like this was already in me when I was like 6 or 7, that I would think, oh, they did a better job, or oh, this is where I'm not good at this particular, to do this particular thing, whatever, right? And I think piecing this back to my childhood and having now a better understanding of why I'm weird the way I'm weird is that there was a lot of comparison and a lot of looking at the results in my childhood household. This like, oh, how do you appear to others? Oh, what are the things you do or don't do, and how are you being seen? And my parents having or my family having a local business, having lots of clients, and the teachers being our customers and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of, it's just like, as great as it is to grow up in a village, it's a small, it's a small village. So everyone knows everyone. And so I always had to be, I don't know, it was so ingrained into me to be super duper careful. And it really suffocated me knowing that, oh, there's things I can't do and I can't go wrong here and I shouldn't do that. And this is, I think, how it showed up with me then. Oh, I need to be careful. What are the others doing and observing? And then I started to compare my art, which is so not helpful, very destructive.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is how I pieced this together just now as you were talking for myself. Oh yeah, that's how it came about in my life, because you were asking like, okay, where does that happen? Where does the creativity get lost, or the belief in our creativity get lost? And I think that was a big piece for me, this like comparison. And I'm obviously curious to know about your guys' traumas. What happened? Where did it go wrong for you guys? If you know, maybe you don't, but I'm curious.
Well, I will say comparison kills. I know that's very cliche to say, but it is so. What was coming up for me was the connection between creativity and imposter syndrome. And this like, as Stephanie was just saying, we compare and we look at what other people are doing and we say, oh, I can't do that. I can't draw like that. I'm coming back to mine, like, because again, what I was told about, or what I was taught about creativity was like, you can paint, you can draw, like this is what creativity is. It was very structured in terms of a definition. And which is ironic because creativity itself is so abstract and so like beyond a box. And yet like in school, they're like, this is what creativity is, and they kind of like push you into this one little box. And so for me, like I realized like early on, like I think I struggled a lot with like the imposter syndrome, because even if I wanted to say that I was creative, my only definition of creativity was like being able to paint and draw and things like that. Well, when I look at, the others around me who were way better at this than I was, like painting and drawing, you get into that headspace of imposter syndrome of like, oh, I'm a fraud. If I call myself creative, I'm a fraud because I can't do this, or I'm not as good as, my neighbor or whatnot. And I think like and I've said this before, I think on the show at some point, but it's one of my favorite reframes of imposter syndrome. And it's you can't be an imposter if you're just being yourself. And at the end of the day, that creativity is a vehicle to let us kind of get to know ourselves more, and like asking that question, how do you create? Because I realized later on in my adult life that, like, oh, I don't paint and draw. I actually don't find that enjoyable, one. And two, like the way I express my creativity is through fashion. I express my creativity through generating ideas and coming out and brainstorming and journaling and writing. And so there's like all of these like other ways that I now allow myself to fully express my creativity, that don't make me feel like an imposter, that don't make me feel like, oh my God, I'm faking creativity. No, I'm just being creative in the way that feels good to me versus feeling forced. Because I used to try to even practice drawing, and I was like, I hate this. I hate it. I'm not going to be the person that carries around a sketchbook, which is ironic because I have a sketchbook here on my desk, but my sketchbook is full of words, not drawings, because I use words to create. That is how I create. And so that was something of like I think there's a lot of, when it comes to creativity, I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome in creativity, because we think, oh, because I'm not as good as the person next to me, I can't call myself a creative person. And I want to challenge that and say, no, you absolutely, like we are innately creative. Like, we are creative beings. We were born to create. We were born to come up with new ideas, new ways of thinking, working, being. Like, this is what we were put on this earth to do. And it's more than just art. You know what I mean? I think that's the biggest thing, is breaking free from the art, like that it's art.
Yeah. Wow. So like, talking about creativity, we've got comparison, we've got imposter syndrome, like so many things. And I think for me, uh, the more tip, I guess I want to say, like, we first think like the typical creative drawing, painting, even just arts and crafts. That was something that I always really enjoyed. Like, even in school projects, I would go, I was so extra. But it's because I enjoyed it. So I was often the kid in the class that, like, I still vividly remember this. We had to build like a solar system diorama, and mine was like a 3D working model of all the planets rotating around the sun. Like, it was incredible, and I have to give credit to my mom because she definitely helped on that one. But we were a great team. But that's the thing. A lot of that came from my mom. Like, my mom was very artsy, and like, she's done, oh my gosh, she paints, but it like acrylic painting, that's what I'm looking for. And it is like, oh my gosh, she has a gift. And then she not only does that, she does like stained glass. Now she does tattoos. Like, so there's so much of that, more of like the arts, I want to say, kind of creativity that just got passed down to me. But I was often in the classroom the project that was like highlighted, like, oh hey, because I also loved writing as well. So it was kind of like, oh hey, look what Amanda did, and look what Amanda wrote. And oh, how they were like, oh, who got the highest score in the class, and they always call out that person, and that was often me. And I guess now I can kind of see, oh wow, I should have, I don't like that, but I could have been proud of that. But I think for me, it felt like then there was this standard of this is where the bar is. And I set the bar so high that every time it had to be that. And I pushed myself. And this is where I think that like perfectionism and also this, similar to Stephanie, I can relate to this as being the oldest of 4 kids. Like there's a certain way that you're expected. There's certain expectations of how you are to show up and how you are to behave and how you're supposed to set a good example and blah, 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 and all those things. So I think even in that, creativity shows up, right? So I think for me, that's more of what it was. It was like this like idea that creativity meant that it had to be perfect, or it had to be the best, or it had to be over the top. And though I still like to do those things and I still enjoy putting a little extra effort, but it's because it's actually, then over time, I think what I've realized is that because it's for me, because it's something that I enjoy, because it's something that I'm actually expressing myself through this creation, that it's not a standard that I need to, or a bar that I need to reach. It's actually just, I really like this. I really enjoy expressing myself and creating in a visual way. Because to me, I would also, now that I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, so many thoughts. Like I would connect this to like my love of graphic design and like looking at things visually. I think that's something for me, I'm a very visual person. And so visually being able to see things that are appealing, I like it. I get excited about it. So it isn't just about, oh, well, I'm expected to, the bar's up here and I have to reach that. It's actually just, this is how I express myself and I enjoy this, and letting go of that, and also letting go of, okay, if I don't hit the mark or if it's not perfect, that's also okay. And I can still express myself in this way.
It sounds like that the pressure is off for you now. Like before there was so much pressure and it became almost duty to be creative and to always bring 100%, 120%. But now you're kind of like, settled at 100. Which is still
settled at 100.
It would still like kill my creativity if I were like, but I get it. Especially I think the perfectionist part is so big for so many of us. And I know this too. So I'm gonna share the story. So for the course that I'm building now, there's also workbooks with that, right? Mm-hmm. And I know if I were to design the workbooks, I would go nuts. It would take me literally 1,000 hours. I would still not be happy with the result. And I probably like get a lot of white hairs from that. Like I would turn gray. Because I don't know, with some projects, the perfectionism turns up to 100 like immediately. So I've now made the decision for myself, I'm not gonna do it. I have a vision for it, but I'm not gonna be the one executing it. I'm gonna ask other people, like Amanda, for example, and to help me with this, because I know that's not something. Yes, it's fun to sometimes create some things for me too and go in Canva and go totally nuts. Like that's really cool. But also just for myself to know I don't have to do it by myself. And when I know that I have this perfectionistic tendency, I can just ask for help, because other people obviously manage that a bit better than I do. And I have now this new rule to say to myself, like I ask myself that question like 50 times a day. Is it 80%? And when it's 80%, I move on, and that has made things so much easier for me. Instead of always looking, no, but it needs to be more, and I need to tweak this and twist that and add more here and do more that. And just to say, is it 80%? Yes or no? If it's not, I need to adjust and ask myself what would make it over 80. And if it's 80, I just move on. This is so, like, I can recommend that for anyone who is struggling with perfectionism. The 80%, oh, it's so good. This is so cool.
And it's enough. Right? I think that's the most important piece in the perfectionist world. It's like, it's enough. It's enough.
Yeah, and whether or not I add a trim or I do an edge here or I do a little flower over there, it's not gonna add any or take away any value from the course, right? Like I know that in my head, but somehow my head also says, no, you have to do it. Yeah, fascinating process.
Mhm.
Stephanie, you brought up a very good topic around like the power of creativity and community.
Yes.
And like what happens when we co-create with others,
Mhm.
you know? Because it's very like, I don't know, like there's just something, because I also like I'm putting together my course right now, my programs, and I have a bunch of slides that I have to put together. And it's not that I don't it's not that I can't do it. Like my thing is it just gets boring, you know, but there's a lot of slides. Like there's like I think over 100. It's a lot. It's 5 courses that are coming together to create one like super program. But so it's a lot. And I sit there and I go, oh my God, it's just the same. Like, because, you know, I have my color schemes down. And actually, I showed somebody the other day some of the slides and they were like, oh my God, these are like, the colors are beautiful. And I was like, oh, thanks. But I was like, I cannot stand looking at these anymore because I'm just like, I don't know, like those, but like the power of community and then being able to like give it to somebody like Amanda who thrives in that space, who's like, love PowerPoints, I love worksheets, I love like, you know, it's so important to understand that there is power in community and there's power, like you can amplify your creativity by outsourcing. I
Mhm.
think this is really hard. This is something that I've struggled with is being able to say, hey, could I, you know, could I borrow your expertise? Can we lean together on this and like let's collaborate? Let's, you know, can I pay you to do these slides for me? Like what's your going rate for this? Like, because sometimes like that's just gonna free up your brain to then do more of the creative genius that you were actually supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? And like I find it so hard to like ask for help a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's
I'm in that camp too, by the way.
you know we're working on that a
Yeah.
lot, but like that has been like I think part of my creativity journey is really understanding like, oh, when do I need to like bring on somebody to amplify the creativity. And that's a really good reframe too, is like amplifying the creativity versus like like I don't know, lose like not like it's no longer yours. No, it's now just amplified.
And I think this is the beautiful way you use, bless you,
Thank you.
to use other people's creative genius, right? Like you guys are talking about workbooks and slides, and I'm like, ooh, I'm getting so excited. But I know that's not for everyone, right? And so I think when we can tap into other people's creative genius, like you're saying, Tyler, that's really the amplification. Like that's the, okay, let's work together and everyone can express their creativity in the way that feels most exciting for them. Because I think anyone can relate to this. Like when you're excited about something, when you're just in this flow, enjoying, it's so much more fun. And what you produce, whatever that is, like that can look like so many things as we've already touched on. So I won't go back to that, but just, that when you're in that, I want to say like creative zone of genius or something, your creative genius zone. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Something, like your flavor of creativity, it just flows. And I do believe that all of us should be in that space more often. And we can do that more often by being in community, by collaborating, by figuring out, okay, yeah, what is your, creative zone of genius? Like what does that look like for you? And we can use that in the best way, right?
I love that you brought this up to say creative genius zone, because we talked earlier about like just creativity is in everything and being creative and all of that. But then there is I feel like the creative genius zone is the next level of that, where we can show up in all the things that we do every day and bring our creativity, or just be creative because we're just being alive, basically.
Yeah.
But then there is the creative genius zone where we really create the sense of purpose for ourselves,
Yeah.
and where also other people. I think that's such a huge part of also creativity, that other people benefit from whatever we produce or create in that moment. I don't know if you guys remember, we had this one episode where we talked about zones, like the comfort zone,
Yes.
Oh
the
yeah.
survival zone, and the thriving zone, or whatever it was. I feel like we should add the creative genius zone to that and make it like a bigger model now.
Ooh,
Or rename one
I
of the
like
zones. Maybe we already have it, but yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's important, and I think it's important to understand what you're like. Okay, yes, we're all creative beings, but how do you express your creativity? That's a really beautiful question to reflect on, because it looks different for every single person.
That's a really powerful question to end on, I
Mhm.
think, is how do you express your creativity?
My brain still hurts from this question, honestly.
Because once you know that, once you have that clarity, you're then able to step into that creative genius zone, and that's where the magic happens. That's where all of the explosive, like, whiteboard energy happens for me. It's like madman with the expo marker being like, and like, but that's the beauty of creativity, is it is so personal and so individual, and being able to honor your creativity and understand that, like, you are just as creative as the person who can doodle a masterpiece, like, it's just expressed differently. And that's what makes creativity so beautiful, is that it is an individual expression that we have to discover and then honor it every single day.
So we will leave you with this question. And let us know in the comments, or write to us, or wherever we connect. Let us know how you do that. How do you express your creativity?
Thanks so much, everybody. Until next time, stay creative.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast, and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversations going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.